It was a rather interesting race today here at the Dover National Speedway, as multiple playoff drivers had issues with the monster mount today, but one person prevailed and broke a 75 race winless streak, and that is Kyle Larson. Let's get into it. Let's talk about what happened during today's round of 12 opener from Dover International Speedway. Now, all the action started before we even took the green flag. Playoff driver Joe Logano, who had issues with his car, came onto pit road during the pace laps, and they sent the car to the garage due to a rear end axle breaking. Now, this sounds familiar. Jimmie Johnson had, I don't know if it was the same problem, but had a similar issue last year during the pace laps. An issue with the car happened. He had to come onto pit road, go to the garage, and that ended his race. And that's what happened to Joe Logano. He came back on the racetrack eventually, 23 laps down on lap 24. But then we would eventually get to green flag racing. Denny Hamlin, who won the pole, to his outside was Kyle Larson. Hamlin got a run who started on the outside lane, got the lead coming off of 2, was able to clear Larson and drove out to the lead. Harvick, who started 3rd, fell back all the way to 6th place due to him reporting that the car was very loose. You could see it. He would get loose in the car on entry, and he just could not hold the bottom, and drivers were able to get by him. And that's what you really need. If you wanted to run well at Dover, it's kind of like Old Bristol. You had to get right on that bottom line, make sure you get that perfectly, hold that yellow line, carry the most speed, and Kyle Larson was able to do that for majority of the race. But then on lap 8, another driver had issues, and that was the 9 car of Chase Elliott, last week's winner at the Roval, who a lot of people had on as their favorite to go back-to-back. Not only did he not win the race, but he blew an engine on lap 8, and that sealed his fate for this event. And like I said earlier, Logano and Elliott, they were not the only 2 playoff drivers that had trouble in this race today. I believe, like I said, maybe half of the drivers had problems with this race today. Restart took place on lap 13. Denny Hamlin took the lead once again. Kyle Larson would settle into 2nd. And remember what I said before on how Logano and Elliott were the only 2 drivers that have issues today? Well, yeah, it continued. On lap 47, the 12 car Ryan Blaney, he reported that there was a change of pitch in the engine of his car. Now, the reason why I say that is because even though it has nothing to do with what happens later on in the race to Blaney, just keep that in note. Blaney had some problems not only at the start of the race, but later on in the event that would eventually take him out. Now, with the 2019 Aero package, we saw early on in the June race that you could not pass, or at least it was very, very difficult to pass due to the dirty air. And what really caused all the action was lap traffic. Sometimes drivers would get held up by a lap car, and that allowed the driver behind to get by him. Or sometimes drivers behind would use the lap car as a pick in order to get by the car ahead of him. Larson had lap traffic to his advantage, where he was able to cut the lead down to able to get to the back end of Hamlin, but he was just unable to do so. He was able to get side by side with Hamlin, but Hamlin would just get the drive off the corner on the outside lane, and Larson was not able to clear Hamlin for the lead. Pit stops then began on lap 77 with Denny Hamlin, Kyle Larson, and Mark Truex shooting the top 3, beginning the pit stop cycle. But when it's all said and done, no change really. Hamlin took the lead once again, and he would end up winning stage 1. Nothing would take place really early on in stage 2. Hamlin took the lead once again on lap 185. Pit stops then began. The 19 was the first one to pit, and William Byron, who was really inside the top 10 for majority of the first stage, came onto pit road 6th, came out 5th ahead of teammate Jimmie Johnson. However, he was busted for speeding, and he's actually the 2nd playoff driver to be busted for speeding. Kyle Busch also was busted for speeding earlier on in stage 1, I believe. So yeah, not only did playoff drivers have issues mechanical-wise, they also had problems on pit road. And that really would sort of derail William Byron's race. He had a really good car, but unfortunately with that speeding penalty, he would no longer be a factor of even contending for a top 10 finish. Now remember I told you earlier that lap traffic was a big role in determining how drivers made passes for positions. Well, it did once again for the lead. Denny Hamlin, who got out to a big lead, lap traffic held him up, so much so that teammate Mark Truex Jr. was able to get side by side with him and was able to pass him for the lead. The driver they were having trouble getting around with was the lap driver Joe Logano, who came back on track 24 laps down, who had issues with the axle. He and Paul Menard created a 6-second gap from 1st to 2nd or so. I don't remember how long it was. To then a 4-car battle for the lead. It was Truex, Harvick, Larson, and Hamlin. And once Truex was able to get ahead of Hamlin and was able to get out in front of Logano finally, Truex took off. Then that settled a three-man battle for second place between Hamlin, Larson, and Harvick. They were all swapping positions back and right, and Larson wasn't able to finally get ahead of not only Kevin Harvick, but was able to get by Denny Hamlin to take the second position, and Harvick was able to get by Hamlin, so Hamlin fell from second to fourth. That battle allowed, like I said earlier, Martin Truex Jr. to get by away from the rest of the field, and Truex was able to win stage 2. Now, stage 3 takes place. Martin Truex Jr. is nowhere to be found on the front row due to him having an issue on pit road where I believe his right rear tire changer slipped when changing onto the left side, and that halted Martin Truex Jr.'s performance, and not performance, but it halted him from getting a better position off of pit road. And I believe he started 7th or 8th, I want to say, or even further than that, I'm not sure, but that really affected Martin Truex Jr.'s way of getting a win, and that would ultimately cost him a chance of winning at Dover. So Kyle Larson would be the eventual leader, and he would clear the drivers behind him off of turn 2. Then on lap 272, Denny Hamlin, who at that point led 207 laps, he reported that he could be having a motor issue. He was saying something was wrong with the car, and he thought that he would be blowing up. Now, eventually that did not happen, but it was a very hectic moment for Hamlin and all Hamlin fans, because Hamlin really had the best car, or at least one of the best cars, and that would have been a very, very shocking thing to happen if he were to blow up. But like I said earlier, he would not. He would eventually finish the race. Oh, but the playoff troubles do not end there. Ryan Blaney, remember I talked about earlier, who reported a change of pitch in the engine, a possible cracked head on the engine department. That was not the issue, but he had a new issue. Lap 298, he reported he had no brakes at all. He would take that car to the garage, and that would end Blaney's day, and he would eventually leave Dover 22 points below the cut line, last in standings. Pit stops then began with 80 laps to go. Again, no change there. However, with 40 laps to go, Kyle Larson was leading, and Martin Truex Jr. was able to rebound from that slip up on pit road to second place, and was even able to cut Larson's lead from 3 seconds to 1 second because of lap traffic. But ultimately, no lap traffic would heavily affect Larson's lead to the point where Truex was able to contend, or at least get side by side. Larson was able to stretch that lead out once again, and Kyle Larson would eventually win the Dryden 400 at Dover, breaking a 75 race winless streak, and is right now the only driver that will not have to worry about Talladega next week. So you can see the unofficial results, the top 20 that will scroll on the bottom of your screen. Kyle Larson wins, Martin Jr. in 2nd, Alex Bowman 3rd, Kevin Harvick in 4th, Denny Hamlin in 5th, Kyle Busch 6th, who really, I was kind of surprised he finished in 6th place because he was not a factor at all in terms of practice and qualifying speeds, but was able to rebound to have a nice 6th place runs. Huge shout out, Matt DiBenedetto in 7th. I mean, I'm very excited to see what he can do in that 21 car, because that 21 car has a huge alliance with Team Penske, and is obviously much better than the 95 car. And if he can do what he did in the 95 car at a track like Dover, a very physical, very tough track, and bring home a top 10 in that type of equipment, I'm very interested to see what he can do in the 21 car. Jimmy Johnson, a nice solid run for him in the 8th place. I really expected him to be around the top 10, bring home a nice 8th place run. I believe that's 3 or 4 straight top 10 finishes, so good job 48 team. Kurt Busch in 9th, Clinton Boyer rounds up the top 10, Brad Keselowski in 11th, Paul Menard in 12th, William Byron in 13th. As I said, the pit road speeding penalty hurt his chances of getting even a top 5 or a top 10. He comes home in 13th, Daniel Suarez in 14th, and Eric Jones rounds up the top 15. Now let's take a look at some notables that finish outside the top 20, I should say, and really we only have to focus on 2 of them, that being Joe Logano, who finished 34th, Ryan Blaney finished 35th, and Chase Elliott would finish in 2nd to last place in 38th. So what are my thoughts on this race? Well, it was a typical Dover race. I really didn't expect much. NBC, obviously, they helped it. I mean, NBC, in my opinion, makes the races a lot better, so I'll give them credit on that, but this was just a normal race. If I give it a 5, 6 out of 10, I don't know. It wasn't really any. There was moments, but those moments only happened because of lap traffic. And once lap traffic was out of the way, then there was no more passing. So this package helps tracks and hurts others. This package definitely hurts Dover. They really need to do some sort of change with this package with Dover or some of the tracks like Pocono, because the racing, in my opinion, has downgraded heavily because of this package. And I really do like Dover. I really love the track, even the way it looks. It is a mental, physical challenge for these drivers, and I really do love the track. Just wish the racing was a lot better, and I feel like it is, or it can be, They just need to get that package set up. But enough with the bad of Dover. Next week, on the other hand, what could happen? What could be next week? Oh wow, it's Talladega. Woo! Talladega. It should be an exciting race. As I said earlier, this package hurts and helps some tracks. This package definitely helps Talladega and Daytona, the super speedway tracks. Talladega, I think earlier this year was one of the best Talladega races I've ever seen in a long time. And 11 drivers in the round of 12 are gonna be not having the best of sleeps next weekend. Like I said earlier, Kyle Larson is the only driver locked into the round of 8. Let's take a look at the remaining 11 drivers of the round of 12 standings. Mark Truex Jr. has a 63-point lead ahead of 8th place. Denny Hamlin, his teammate, 48, as well as Kyle Busch. Kevin Harvick in 5th, 42 points above. Brad Keselowski in 6th, 20 points above. Alex Bowman in 7th, 17 points above. And then William Byron and Joe Logano both tied for 8th, but the advancement will go to William Byron. Joe Logano, first one out in 9th. Clinton Boyer, 4 points below in 10th. Chase Elliott with that blown engine now enters Talladega, the defending winner, 7 points below the cut line in 11th. And Ryan Blaney, who really is, depending on how Talladega goes, he's probably going to be in a must-win situation, 22 points below the cut line in 12th place. So yeah, Dover now out of the way. Now on to second round of the round of 12, Talladega Super Speedway. What are your guys' thoughts on the race? Tell me in the comment section down below. But until next time, my name is Jerk from NASCAR on MDK, and I'll see you guys in the next video.